Hey everyone, welcome back. My name is Adelina, and on this channel I talk about, well, a little bit about a lot of things. Today I'm not doing a recipe video. Today I'm doing something a little different. I am doing a Q&A on the topic that, it's not the topic I get the most questions about, but it's a topic that I do get a lot of questions about. And the topic is veganism, specifically why I'm vegan and questions about it. It's not a topic that I talk a lot about on my channels, but it's not something that I hide. It is a part of who I am. So today I'm going to answer some of the questions that you have asked. I'll start with a disclaimer. The disclaimer is, if you're not interested in this topic, if you're not interested in veganism or eating plant-based, then please just skip this video. It's not for you, and I didn't make it to force the topic down anybody's throat. I'm making this video because I do get a lot of questions, and so this video is for those of you who have asked and who do want to know. So that's disclaimer number one. Disclaimer number two is, I realize that I come from a place of privilege. I live in Canada, I am middle class, and I have the resources available to me. What I mean by that is I don't live in a food desert where there aren't grocery stores that have reasonably priced fruits and vegetables, grains, things like that. And I have access to those things and I can afford those. However, I am going to address that topic. The third one is, this is just my experience. This is just my opinion. Yours might be very different. You might have a very different philosophy than mine. This is just my philosophy, my opinion. This is my channel. So that's what I'm sharing. And so if yours is different, I totally respect that. It doesn't need to become a debate and an argument in the comment section. I won't let it. I will just delete comments that get that way, because this foster an inclusive, loving, caring atmosphere. We are all part of this family that is the human race, and we all need to be kind to one another, and I think maybe now more than ever. So those are the three disclaimers. Let's get on with the video. Let's get started. The number one question that I get asked, either on my channels or in real life, is how long have I been vegan? It's kind of hard to remember the exact date. I know that it was beginning of May, and from everything, when I go backwards, I believe it was May 2016. I was vegetarian about a year and a half, almost 2 years prior to that. And ironically, before I stopped eating, well, before I became vegetarian, I actually spent a period of time eating basically a paleo type diet. And the reason that I adopted that was because I was trying to lose weight. And basically, I did lose weight because you cut out virtually all carbs. You don't eat a lot of fruit, you don't eat grains. It's just a very low carb diet, which does make you lose weight. So that is how long I've been vegan and going strong. The second most asked question that I get is, why did I go vegan? Usually people will go plant-based or vegan for one of three reasons. They will do it for the animals, animal welfare. They will do it for the environment, because there is plenty of research out there. Even the World Health Organization has research on its website that show that animal agriculture is one of the top, greenhouse gas emitter. So they will go vegan for the environment, or they will go vegan for their health. After having eaten a paleo diet and lost some weight, and then I ate a lot of eggs, not so much dairy, some yogurt because it was cultured and it agreed with my digestive system a bit more, but I'm a lactose intolerant, so I didn't eat a lot of dairy, but I did eat cheeses and some yogurt and a lot of eggs. I went for my annual physical and was told that I had very high cholesterol, which was a shock to me because I've never had that problem and nobody in my family has ever had that issue. So that got me doing some research. I initially started researching how, what foods have the most cholesterol and how to get your cholesterol down. And stopping animal products was the most obvious choice, most obvious avenue, because plants don't have cholesterol. There are some plants with saturated fat, coconut, avocados, things like that, but there are no plants that have cholesterol. Cholesterol is a uniquely animal component in these products. But that is not why I went vegan. That was why I started to eat more plant-based, but I went vegan for the animals. For me, I did research. I thought I was being more of an animal advocate by eating free range and organic, but when I did my research, I realized that it doesn't matter how the animals are raised, they all end up in the same slaughterhouse, and the majority of animal products that we eat, especially the ones that are in the foods that we buy in the grocery stores, don't come from free range organic farms. They come from factory farms, and for me that was unacceptable, so I went vegetarian. And then I learned more about the egg industry, and especially the dairy industry, and what I learned horrified me. Again, this is my experience, and I realized that it was just as cruel, if not more cruel, and I could not be a part of that. So for me, my why is the animals. The fact that my cholesterol rapidly went back down to a normal range and has stayed there all this time was a wonderful bonus, and obviously something that was very important to me. I also very much care about the environment. That's obviously also important to me, but that's not why I went vegan. I went vegan for the animals. The other two things were important side benefits. One of the comments that I get so frequently is that it's hard to be vegan, or is it hard to be vegan? And I always say exactly the same thing. It's not hard to be vegan. It's certainly not hard to be plant-based, but it is inconvenient. Less so now. In the world that we live in now, there are so many more products in the grocery stores, so many more options in restaurants, even fast food chains, things like that. But it does require that you read ingredient labels. It does require that you do some research and find options. There is more effort involved in eating plant-based, but it isn't hard. Being vegan, on the other hand, can be a bit more work, and I'm going to talk about the difference between plant-based and veganism next. So what's the difference between being plant-based and vegan? So what you need to understand is that veganism is not a diet. And that is the biggest misconception that that people have. They assume that veganism is a diet, and it's not. It is a philosophy. It is a belief system that says that I believe that my taste buds are not more important than another living creature's ability to live a long life and not be subjected to cruel conditions and then a violent, painful death. That's my philosophy. Whereas plant-based is just a way of eating. That is a diet. If you are eating a plant-based diet, then you are not having any animal products in your diet, including dairy and eggs and honey. Any part of an animal or anything that comes from an animal. So there is a difference, and I think that it's important to know the distinction. Don't get me wrong, if you're eating a plant-based diet, even part-time, you're still doing wonderful things for the animals, the environment, and your health. So I'm all for that. I'm not the type of person that believes it's my job to force everybody to become vegan. I think eventually everybody will need to adopt more of a plant-based diet, if not a predominantly plant-based diet, because the way that we are using and abusing this planet and animals is unsustainable. But for now, I live my life, and I hope that I can influence people just by example and being kind to them, because I was in their place at some point, and very few of us vegans were born, raised vegan. I certainly wasn't. It also is not just about food. It's about the products that we use, makeup, skincare. It's about basically how we move through the world. But it's also not about being perfect, because we don't live in a perfect world. Very few of us have the ability to control our world to the extent that we won't in some way be impacting animals because of the car we drive or the house we live in didn't have at some point some sort of an animal impact. I have an old belt that I've had for probably 25 years. It's a leather belt. Am I going to throw it out? No, because that would be wasteful. But am I ever going to buy another leather belt or leather shoes? Absolutely not. I can make my choices and decisions going forward to the best of my ability. But I think trying to be absolutely perfect and pure is unrealistic, unreasonable, and a bit elitist. Again, just my opinion. Then having to look at the products that you're using to clean your house, the products that you're using, especially skincare and makeup. Those products are often tested on animals. And again, because I went vegan for the animals, and because veganism is not a diet, it's a philosophy, it's a lifestyle, it's a belief system, it's very important to me to research and search out companies and products that don't test on animals and that don't have any animal ingredients in them, such as honey and things like that. So that's the difference between veganism and a plant-based diet. Being plant-based is awesome, but being vegan is different. All vegans are slim, all vegans are healthy. That is not the case because, like I said, not all vegans go vegan for health. For me, health is obviously important. I take care of myself, and I wanted to be sure to feed healthy food to my kids, particularly since my oldest is a juvenile diabetic. But I didn't go vegan for health. It is about the animals for me. So to shame and come down on people who are vegan because they don't fit this stereotypical image of what people want a vegan to look like is ridiculous, because vegans come in all different shapes, sizes, ages, ethnic backgrounds, than as meat eaters or omnivores. We are just people that have chosen to eat this way, have a belief system about eating this way, which is why you'll often hear me talk about vegan products that are replacement products for animal products. So non-dairy milks, vegan burgers, meatballs, chicken nuggets, things like that. Cheeses, things like that. These are products that are not necessarily healthy. They are replacement products to help people make the transition, and to a lot of people just stay there. They want to eat exactly the way they did. They just want to not affect the animals. They just want to not affect the environment. And so they choose those products. That's why they exist. That's why the vegan market is growing so much every year. And I am thrilled, because I don't really care why people go vegan. I just care that every person who chooses a plant-based meal or goes vegan has a smaller impact on what matters to me the most, which is the animals. So you'll find people that go vegan for health, and they are going to have obviously a much healthier diet with fewer, if any, processed foods, and they will be cooking at home versus getting fast food and eating out. And that's wonderful, because for them, that's the priority, and that is why they've decided to make this change, and I applaud them as well. The fact that I have been able to stay at a healthy weight. You know, I fluctuate a little bit. During the pandemic, I have gained some weight. I will admit it, because I haven't been able to get out as much and exercise, and there has been some comfort eating and cooking. However, I'm still healthy, and my weight is still in the healthy range. My doctor gives me a big thumbs up every time I go in for my annual physical. So that has been a wonderful secondary benefit. But again, my priority has always been the animals, and that's also one of the reasons why I find it easy to stay vegan, because I really believe that my taste buds are not more important than an animal's life. My philosophy: I'm willing to be inconvenienced in order to live to my belief system. Another question that I get very often is, isn't it expensive to eat a vegan diet? Or a comment that says, it's so expensive, it's elitist, it's expensive, not everybody can afford it. As I said at the beginning of this video, I realize I live in a privileged country and a privileged life. I have access to farmers markets because I live in Alberta and there's a lot of agriculture around here. And I have access to a lot of grocery stores that sell produce and a lot of options. There are places in this world where that isn't available easily, and places even in North America where they're called food deserts, where there isn't a grocery store that has fresh produce and vegetables around there, or that if there is, it's so expensive, and that fast food and animal product based foods, especially fast foods, are so much cheaper because they're so subsidized. So again, I realize I come from that privileged position. However, eating a plant-based diet, and I'm just going to call it a plant-based diet here, is not expensive. Some of the poorest countries in the world eat predominantly a plant-based diet. Why isn't it expensive? Because we're talking about a base diet of rice, beans, legumes, root vegetables, things like that. If you're going to eat avocados and mangoes, unless they grow in your country, it's going to be expensive. If you're buying these prepackaged, processed vegan meat and dairy alternatives, yes, they can be expensive. But I got to say, my grocery bill went down substantially when I stopped buying meat when the kids were still at home. So it's not expensive. It's all about how you shop. If you're buying your beans and legumes dry, so your lentils and your beans, chickpeas dry, and you are soaking them and cooking them yourself, that's not expensive. I buy big bags of jasmine rice in the ethnic section of the grocery store. That's not expensive, and that makes meals for an incredibly long time, and those things are shelf stable. So when you have those as your base, your meals can be very inexpensive. Spices, especially if you can buy them in bulk, are also not expensive. And then things like potatoes, carrots, here in Canada in particular, are also not expensive. And then you know, there's always certain vegetables and fruits that are on sale. Here, apples tend to be a good price, oranges during certain seasons, peppers, things like that. It all depends. Also, frozen fruits and vegetables tend to be a lot less expensive because you can buy them in big bags, and again, they store in your freezer for a long period of time, and they are frozen at the peak of freshness. So they are healthy and usually a good price. So does it have to be expensive? Absolutely not. Can it be? Sure. Just like any diet. But if you are eating a predominantly whole foods diet that is not made up of fresh fruits and vegetables that are exotic to where you live, it's not expensive. And I think that that is a big excuse that people use because they don't want to make the effort to cook from home. So yeah, you're going to, if price is a factor for you, and I think it is for all of us. Then it's going to require some effort at home. Again, like I said, it's not hard, but it is inconvenient. You're going to have to do some cooking at home. But last night I made mashed potatoes and gravy with meatballs in it for my kid, and I used Gardein meatballs in the mushroom gravy, but I didn't need to because I had big slices of mushrooms in there and onions in the gravy, and then I mashed the potatoes with some non-dairy milk and some margarine. That made a great meal. I threw in some frozen peas, and we had a meal that was not expensive. If I had taken those Gardein meatballs out, that I think cost me $4.99 Canadian, it would have been a very inexpensive meal because I had bought a big bag of potatoes for like $5, and that meal will last. We both ate it. I sent some home with them. I still have a bunch in the fridge that will take me for dinner, lunch, dinner, and probably lunch tomorrow. And again, not expensive, but did require some prep. It's as expensive a way to eat as you make it. So I get comments on Instagram and on my channel where somebody is saying they would really like to be vegan or plant-based, but their family just wouldn't go for it. They've tried and they're tired of having to cook 2 meals, or their family won't eat what they make. So what do I say to that? Well, I'm going to be a little harsh here. When I decided to go 100% vegan, and I was still cooking for both my kids, I just decided I would no longer have animal products in my house. They grossed me out. I no longer thought of them as food, and so there was none. And I told my kids at the time that if they wanted it, they could have it out. They could eat whatever they wanted when they were out of the house. If they desperately wanted to bring it in and cook it themselves, then clean up after themselves, I would be okay with that. At the beginning, I allowed that. Neither one of them ever did it. So what would I say? I would say exactly that. I'm not cooking 2 meals. This is what I'm making. If you want something else, you can cook it yourself and then clean up after yourself. And then shortly, about 6 months after that, I decided I would also no longer allow it in my house. Is it going to cause some stress? Maybe. It all depends on how strong your beliefs are. Again, that's why I think it's really important to have a good why. And I think animal agriculture or the environment is probably a stronger why than health for people. But it's not a negotiable for me. I'm not flexible on that. If I'm at somebody's house, I'm not going to tell them what to have in their house. I'm not going to tell them what to make. But if it's my house, my dollars, my effort making that meal, it's going to be a plant-based meal. It's going to be 100% vegan. Is it going to be tasty? Yes. And if you've tried any of my recipes, I hope you think so too. Because you can make almost every single thing that you used to make for your family that wasn't vegan, you can make a vegan option of it. And it's all about the spices and the sauces, just like if you were cooking meat. And you can make delicious food that's satisfying, that fills that familiar sort of niche need or want for familiar foods. And you can make it plant-based. Now, if you are underage and living in your parents' house and you have no control over the food that they're cooking, this is going to be more difficult. And I think until you are independent and cooking your own food, that might be something you just have to live with. However, if you can afford to make your own meals, or if you can jump in and take some of the food before the animal products are added, finish that piece for yourself, then that can work as well. And before people say you can't force your kids to eat anything, we do it all the time. How many times did your mom force you to finish what was on your plate? Eat your vegetables. Eat that broccoli. We do it all the time. We are absolutely able to decide what our children eat based on health and science. And you can't tell me that a plate full of vegetables, whole grains, legumes is not a healthy food for a young person. And the pediatrics associations across the world have stated that a well-planned vegan diet is absolutely healthy for children at all stages of life. So again, a well-planned vegan diet, just like a well-planned animal-based diet. Junk food is junk food. What happens if you're going to family gatherings? I always bring food when I go to somebody's place for dinner that aren't vegan and that don't know me and aren't already, making something that they know I can eat. I bring, you've seen the recipes. Some of my favorite recipes to bring are that pasta salad that I made, the za'atar and lemon roasted potatoes. But there's a lot of things you can bring that everybody will love. It's not weird vegan food. And that way you can be sure that there's something there that you can eat. And then don't make a big deal out of it. Just eat before you go to the family gathering, so you go in full, and then make sure that you've brought something that you can eat and enjoy, that everybody else can also have, and then just enjoy being there. Don't make a big deal of it. I never make a big deal out of being vegan. When I go to a restaurant or somebody's house, I just bring something or look at the menu ahead of time. If I go to a restaurant with a group of people that aren't vegan and I have no control over where we're going, I'll have a salad and a plate of fries. Is it healthy? Absolutely not. Is it satisfying? Not as much. But I'm there to be with the people. It's only one limited period of time, and I don't make a big deal out of it. And people, they really don't notice. If your belief system is strong, if this is something that's important to you, then you basically have to say, I no longer cook this, I no longer buy it, I no longer have it in my house, I no longer eat it. I can, it's not that you can't, you choose not to. You no longer do it, and people will respect you for being true to your beliefs if you decide to become vegan. You will have people who want to ask you why. And who want to debate you. Some of those people will just genuinely be curious. They'll have watched you over time, just live your best life and do your thing and not make a big deal out of it and just be happy and strong in your belief system. And they'll start to get curious and they'll start to ask why. Other people will ask questions because they want to start a debate and or argument. So what do you do? I do get that question a lot. I was at a barbecue. I live in Alberta, Canada, and we are cattle country here. I was at a barbecue, and I had brought some food that I knew I could eat. And I had a friend, not a close friend, but a friend who I don't see very often, ask me why I was vegan. Now, the first thing I said to her is, this is probably not the right place to ask that question or have that conversation around all of these other people who weren't listening in at the time. But I could tell she was genuinely curious. She really wanted to know. So what I said to her is, this is probably not the right place and time for this. However, I'd really be happy to answer that question for you. Maybe we could have a coffee, another time, or a conversation on the phone or something like that, because I'm always willing to answer the questions if they're asked genuinely because people want to know. But I just did not want it to become a focus of everybody's attention because we weren't there for that. There was a special event happening, and I didn't think it was the right time to answer that question and have that conversation. So that's one. But you will get people that want to ask that question and want to debate. I still say that exact same thing. If you really want to know, then let's schedule a coffee and let's sit down and I'll answer your questions, because I have done the research. I am strong in my belief about what I'm doing and that it's the right thing because it's the right thing for me. So, people will say things like, well, you're killing the broccoli. Animals have to die. And I'll say, no problem. Get a little cheeky if people push it though, because it is annoying and it's not my job to be the brunt of everybody's backhanded snide comments. So I will say something like, no problem, let's sit down and watch a video of the inside of a slaughterhouse together, and then we'll sit down and watch a harvest of corn or canola or broccoli, and then we can compare notes. Nobody's ever taken me up on that. So there we go. I do get cheeky, but it's because I get tired of being the brunt of everybody's snide comments about bacon and things like that. You know, I don't get triggered. I don't argue. I will say something like that, or I will say, you know, why don't we sit down one-on-one? Because usually they want an audience for that. And if they push, I'll just say, listen, I don't eat anything with an asshole. That's when I'm really being cheeky. I think the key is not to be a militant vegan, not to be aggressive and angry, because that's what people who are asking those questions to get a rise out of you, that's what they want. Just stay calm. Just say, listen, this isn't the right time, but I'd be happy to have that conversation one-on-one, because they won't do that when they're one-on-one with you. And if they push, then again, it's okay. It's okay to push back. You have the right to your belief system. Okay. I think it got a little saucy there. Really, honestly, for me, being vegan is just who I am. It's not the only thing I am, but it's part of my core. I move through the world trying to be respectful and kind to people, sort of meeting people where they are, because most of us started from the same place. I wasn't raised vegan. I wasn't vegan my whole adult life, and I mostly raised my kids not. And I am a big believer in leading by example, just living a good life and being kind and loving to people, and people will get curious about why you're the way you are. They will start to ask questions, and then I can help if they want. If not, you know, people have to live their own lives. Hey, listen, if you are interested in this topic and you would like me to do a video where I share my favorite resources, my favorite recipe books that I use all the time, my favorite online sites for recipes, my favorite YouTube creators, my favorite sort of movies that I watch that I recommend that people who are considering or thinking about or curious about changing the way they eat, that I think they should watch, please let me know. I will definitely make that video if there is enough interest in it, because I do have some really good resources that I think really help make this transition so much simpler and easier, and help you make that connection to one of those three areas, either the animals, the environment, or health, depending on what you're interested in. So if that is something that interests you, please let me know, because I kind of would like to make that video, but there's no point in making it if nobody's interested. I hope you found this topic interesting. For me, it is very interesting because it's very close to my heart, as I think you can tell. I'm always happy to answer any questions that you have on any topics. So send them in and I'll be happy to answer them. I hope you guys are doing well, and I will see you next Wednesday. Today I'm going to do... Sophie, now you hack up a hairball? Ugh. I'll be right back.